Welcome back to Arise Africa. Well, we've come to the core of the discussion, or we've come to the crux of the matter. And of course, we mentioned earlier that it's going to be all about the Twitter ban. The suspension of Twitter came after the platform deleted the Nigerian president's tweet last week. Over the years, we do know that the digital platform, talking about Twitter and other digital platforms as well, they've become a safe haven for young people in Nigeria, and away from the safe and away from the harsh realities and mismanagement. They promote their businesses, they build connections, they find jobs, and freely express their political views. Well, so far we've got a lot of reactions about the implication and the effects of the Twitter ban. And one of them is, according to NetBlocks, a watchdog organization which tracks cybersecurity and internet administration. They say that each of the day that Twitter is banned in Nigeria, it actually costs our great nation about 2.18 billion naira. Well, these and more we're going to be talking about today on the show. We're going to be dealing with the effects and implications of the Twitter ban in Nigeria. And to talk about this is a legal luminary, that's what they call it, and a chief in the Warri Kingdom,
Yes.
Chief Barrister Robertson Ario. Welcome.
Thank you very
to the
much.
show.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be
Welcome,
around.
welcome,
and,
sir.
Good morning, listeners at home.
And we're also going to be having a virtual guest, Mr. Alfred Akuki, business analyst, and he's going to be joining us shortly. Oh,
Is
great.
there, right?
It's already here. All right. I think we've really got to start at the beginning, okay? We want to talk about, the implication for Twitter users, basically, because there are 40 millions, like they say, 40 million Nigerian people using Twitter in Nigeria. So what's the implication? Now, Twitter user, you cannot tweet.
Yeah.
What's the scope of the...
Wow. Really, the implications are quite far-reaching,
Okay.
but much more beyond the 40 million users of Twitter. It has grievous implications for the rights of people in this country, because we must understand government to be a social contract between the sovereign and the people. In other words, before decisions are taken, I want to go from that perspective, because once upon a time, Twitter was there, and then something induced the banning of Twitter, okay? And we presume to be practicing democracy, which is the government of the people, by the people, for the people, which in essence is a people-propelled kind of government. So which means that before decisions are taken, naturally they will have to pass through some kind of processing that will have elicit the input of the people. Okay, so on a national level, the ban itself is whimsical, it's capricious, it's spontaneous, without due consultation and consideration for the users of that tool. Because, like you said, you identify some of the uses to which that tool is put, including, of course, critically academics, and so when such a tool used by such huge number of persons is suddenly banned, you want to ask why, okay? And the why, dovetails to the issues that I always like to talk about in, in a situation like this. Now, the President and Commander-in-Chief of Armed Forces of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, who is in that position by virtue of law, of course, is said to have breached rules and regulations, which are also laws set up by Twitter, because he himself was a user of the tool. Okay, and every tool has what you call rules, regulation. When God created Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden, one of the first things he did was to make rules and regulations. And so when the president breached the rules and regulations, now the first reaction he would have had, if he feels justified, is to appeal. There are tools that he could have used, because all these things have multiplier effect for the entire system beyond the economic and social social impact on the users. You know, the process leading to the ban of Twitter is such that derogates on our appreciation and enjoyment of good governance, democracy, decision making, and rule of law. Millions of people are who were the number. If you look at the elections we have had in this country, the highest number of voters that have ever elected a president is 18 million. And here we are talking about 40 million users, which means that he is acting against the majority of the people. Okay, when democracy should be government by the people, for the people, and by for the people, by the people, and for the people. So the point I'm trying to make in essence is that whenever a person who is in government takes a decision that is against the interests of majority of the people, that person has ceased to act in accordance with the principles and tenets of government. Having said that, let me now go straight to your question. The implication of this is far-reaching. It affects our academics. It affects our access to information. Mind you, Twitter is just one of the tools available for people to access information. And some people have taken liking to Twitter, which is a right that they have. I don't use Twitter frequently, okay? But I have a choice. That choice is mine, okay? Let us also understand, I always say this, that government is a social contract. We agreed to surrender our rights to a sovereign called the government in exchange for the protection of our lives and property and provision of an enabling environment for us to actualize our potential. So it amounts to a breach of that contract. I agree that I'm going to obey you in exchange for you to satisfy me. Okay, now I have chosen Twitter as a means, for instance, to pursue my academic goals or to access information or to follow a mentor of my choice. And for no just reason at all, you shut it off. So I lose contact with my mentor. I lose contact with my academic associates. I lose contact with my business partners. You know, now when you go to law courts, there is a Latin maxim you see in front of the effigy of justice is ubi jus, ibi remedium. It means that wherever there is a wrong, there is a remedy. That is the whole essence of justice. We have been wronged. Okay? Now, we have been wrong because even if the ban were lifted today, we were caused some level of discomfort and inconvenience. We were shut off from the activities that ordinarily we would have been engaged in without consultation. And it is quite pathetic because we have three arms of government. One arm is not supposed to be the lord of the other. The way the proponents of separation of power did it is that once a particular arm is exercising excessive powers, the other is supposed to check it. Up till now, we have not heard from the other arms of government.
That's why it's called check and balance.
Yes, that's what's called checks and balance. And again, we seem not to understand that these three arms of government, the executive, the legislative, and the judiciary, are co-equal arms. One is not the lord of the other. So, you know, it is an aberration that it is now the people crying. I expect that a motion would have been moved on the floor of the House to check his excesses.
I was kind of hoping that Jusen will come out with an official statement.
Good. So many, you see, we have been left to ourselves.
So why didn't they?
Well, you see, the truth of the matter is that over the years, we have been cowed as a people. There are many people, there was a time in the life of this country that people were afraid to come out because as soon as they come out, EFCC will be sent after them. They will dig up their files, you know, they will dust it. It's not that Nigerians are not outspoken. People are afraid. You know, they will come after you. But we need to have people in government who understand the principle, you know, behind governance, who understand that government is about the comfort of the people. As a matter of fact, if there was no Twitter in Nigeria and a group of persons come together and ask the Nigerian government to ensure that there should be Twitter, the government is supposed to, you see, you are not a ruler as the president. You know, you are a servant of the people. I want to say that again, and I'm sure that in our ears it sounds strange when I say that the president is our servant. Indeed, he's our servant. He came to us, send me, I will go. And that's what they said, that's what the politicians say. You have gone there what we sent you to do, you are doing something else. Because we didn't send you down there to bring discomfort to us. Man is a pleasure-seeking and pain-avoiding being. Our objective in life is to seek pleasure. Okay? We didn't elect you to come and create discomfort for us. By shrinking our space, we aren't happy about this. If this was an election year and President Muhammad Buhari were asked that, will you ban Twitter? His answer, I suppose, will be different. He will tell you, I won't. In fact, I will encourage the use of Twitter. You know, so such beautiful stories that are the kind of things that you hear. So the point is that it has very far-reaching effects, and the government is determined to clamp down on those who will not adhere to the use of that tool. And the instruments we have, they are enough for the government. A government that wants to be wicked, to clamp down on anybody. We have two critical instruments. One of them is the Cyber Crime Prevention Act. The Cyber Crime Prevention Act was passed and amended in 2015. That act, you know, there are provisions there that can be interpreted, because you see, law is an instrument of social engineering. You know, somebody can be on the other side. If he wants to be bad to you, he will interpret the law in such a manner as to be able to strangulate you. And so these instruments are there. So everybody has to be very, very careful. Before the Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice will come out to say that if you do this, we'll prosecute you. He's a senior advocate of Nigeria. No matter what anybody says, you see, laws are imperfect all over the world. If you look at Soviet Union, for instance, one of the wealthiest persons in Soviet Union was crumbled with the use and instrumentality of the law, depending on how you, before you get out of it, you would have suffered, and that's even if you survive it. So with the way we are going, we need the other two arms of government to wake up. This is obviously an excessive use of power. It is what we call executive rascality, in the sense that you take a decision. If you look at the justification, even what he did, look at the tweets. Let us take a look at the tweet, because something costs something. Yeah. Cost is also critical in appreciation. Look at the tweet he made. He said that he fought a war. He was in the field for 30 months. And that those people out there agitating today are people who don't understand the language of that 30 months. That he will speak the language to them. I mean, they will understand.
Hello? Okay. Hello.
Yeah, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning to you.
Tell us the name and where you're calling from.
Contribute to this Twitter ban in Nigeria.
Yes. First, tell us your name and where you're calling from.
We can hear you. Tell us your name and where you're calling from.
My opinion is that Twitter ban Nigeria.
Turn down the volume of your TV set.
All right. Okay, before
we lost that.
Please, whilst you are calling in, try to turn down the volume of your TV set. It's important that you do so. All right, sir, we're going to come back to you. Let's just connect to Mr. Cookie right there. Mr. Alfred, a very quick one. I know you can hear us. So now, Barrister is talking about the part of the law and the government concerning this, the effect of the government in this. Now, I want you to tell us your own opinion, especially when you're talking about now the business angle, because you are a business analyst, and how has it really affected and, will I say, put in certain businesses, especially the SMEs and those small businesses trying to really make way
influencer businesses
in the country.
Okay, first, one of the things you said before, I mean, Chichi, you talked about NetBlocks, talking about Nigeria losing $250,000. The ban. So far, so good. In the last 6 days, Nigeria has actually lost $6 million to the ban. So, how is this figure? Where did this figure come from? Nigerians use Twitter as a source of, as a marketing tool for vendors, and also influencers rely on it to create viral posts for content for business so that they can advertise also. Aside the fact that Twitter give you the opportunity to run paid ads on the platform. Now, for influencers, they have lost jobs. These are lost jobs. For the advertisers, brands that want to advertise, now they have been cut out of a demography to advertise. Now, what it means is some will be rich, turning customers not know that you still exist. New customers you will not get from that platform. Don't forget, we have Nigerians on Twitter, presidents. Now, the ripple effect for this, it's sending a wrong message to foreign. In fact, before I go in there, some weeks ago, Nigerian banks organized a road show in New York, to woo foreign investors. One of the questions they raised is this issue of Twitter ban. Anyway, because of government decision, just come up with that affect businesses in general, corporate Nigeria. Investors, intending ones or prospective investors, foreign investors, gets chased away. Due to the pandemic, we witnessed a 59.65% drop in capital importation for last year. That's 2020. That's for the pandemic. Imagine what this decision will do to capital importation. When I mean capital importation, I'm talking about foreign direct investment, I'm talking about portfolio investment and others into Nigeria. This decision only has sent a message to foreign investors that your business is not safe in Nigeria. Imagine if Twitter had moved their headquarters to Nigeria instead of Ghana. So, one, there's going to be loss of jobs by this ban because automatically they want to close down and continue their business elsewhere. They have nothing to lose. We have a lot to lose. A lot of jobs have gone directly and indirectly by this decision. And by so doing, other people affected, foreign business that feel affected by this decision will know that doesn't have ShopRite anymore. The arrangement with ShopRite now is just a franchise arrangement. It's being owned by another company. ShopRite left Nigeria because it's no longer profitable. And these are the decisions that make foreign businesses, no longer profitable. And it causes a high demand on the dollar. Right now, the dollar is about 500 naira or more in the parallel market, and also the NAFEX window, which the CBN just adopted. Now, imagine if they decide, very soon you see people trooping out of the country, I mean foreign business, because it's no longer safe. I know of a tech firm that does remote said can no longer do business with Nigerians, because decisions like this, aside the fact that it has a short-term reaching effect, it also has medium to long-term, in the sense that there is a reputation problem for businesses, Nigerian businesses that do business abroad. Now, that company has shut down costs. Their counterpart in the US, in the UK, can no longer do business with them because they feel threatened by the Nigerian business ecospace thanks to policies from the government. So, we keep witnessing rising inflation because it's going to have ripple effects, whether you like it or not.
Okay.
All right.
Before we go back to Chief, I would like to ask you this thing: are the effects totally what do you call it, negative,
Negative.
because I saw something about the federal government licensing local OOTs,
OTTs,
you know, OTTs, right?
Yes,
Was it OOTs, social media platforms, local social media platforms. Do you not think that maybe this is an opportunity to grow our own social media platforms to be giants like Twitter?
Twitter, no.
Could that be maybe a positive impact coming out from what is happening currently with regard to the Twitter ban?
Okay, if I hear you correctly, you're talking the regulation of OTT over the top connections.
Okay. All right.
You already have testimony.
All right.
Whilst
Yes, I want to respond to that. You know,
okay, go ahead.
The truth of the matter is that that will be an afterthought. When you set out, you know, to bring about a change, to build local capacity, you will come out with a framework that you are going to implement stage by stage.
Okay.
This excuse now is an excuse to cover up a sudden unprepared, because the people who will get the impact are the users. Yeah. Were they prepared for it? No, it's not the president. You know, so even if that were your argument, that's what you call gradual. You see, change is a process. It's not an event. It's a relay. It's not a sprint. And so, usually, before you talk about changing a system that is in existence, you must have a plan. Phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. And you must engage the stakeholders. You see, you are not a dictator. People who are participating in the field are the people who you want to change, isn't it? So, did you include them in the process of your policy? We're talking about the policy here. Somebody just wakes up in the morning and tweets something that is very injurious, obviously. You see, the people of the Southeast have suffered something particular. And that in itself is not something we can wish away. Even you yourself, Mr. President, you said you were there. You saw the killings, you saw the rapes, you saw the starvation, you saw the inhumanity. So when they are crying, you don't need to remind them. There will be another time. Every policy must have an agenda, a time space, participation. You know, you cannot cry more than the bereaved. The capacity of those you want to build, they have to be prepared. So it is not because you want to cover up the mistake of the president, for which he ought to apologize to us. You now bring up the issue that you want to build local capacity. So let us embark on a journey, define that journey, and run it to conclusion. So this is just an afterthought. So
Chief, yeah. just to you said something about dictatorship.
Yeah.
Now, with what CJN Malami has said right now and all that he's saying, that Twitter users, if you are caught tweeting, you'll be prosecuted. Yeah. Is it right, or would I say, where is it under the law?
Thank you very much. I mentioned the Cyber Crimes Prevention Act.
Yeah.
There are provisions in that act that you can interpret as meaning that you are trying to bypass. You see, you can circumvent and still use Twitter.
Okay.
Okay. Now, when you do
so
that,
you are saying that he might have a case.
Oh, no, he does have a case.
Okay.
You understand? Because you see, the problem we have in this country is that we are reactionary in our laws. When in 2015, the Cyber Crimes Prevention Act was being promulgated, was being enacted, we were using a big hammer to kill something, not knowing that a time will come when such a law can now be used. A lot of people don't know in Nigeria that most of the things we do on Facebook, cyber stalking, identity thefts, all these are crimes. Under the Cyber Crime Prevention Act, there are provisions there that says that if you, against existing policy, circumvent computer and networks, that the punishment for you, in some cases, 7 years. Okay? So, you see, one thing about law is that it is a very dubious thing. Okay? It depends on who is interpreting the law. And for the purpose of attacking a person, let me tell you, many of us don't know of the existence of several laws.
Okay.
True.
Let me give you an example. Do you know that it's an offense under our law to kill an animal without getting a vet license?
Okay.
I'm sure you are hearing that for the first time.
Yeah.
So many of us kill animals, and policemen are there to supervise it without a vet license. So if you want to punish somebody now, you can dust that law and come out, your enemy, your political enemy, and say, oh, do you also know that it's an offense for an individual to do a transaction of over 5 million naira cash without passing through an institution? It is an offense. But every day we do this. So if the government wants to deal with you, so there are a lot of things that are hidden that we do not know. Do you know it's an offense to bury somebody within a dwelling place? We do this
Every day.
every day. Okay, let's take the issue of bigamy. A man is married to a wife under the act, under the English law, and he marries another one. Who is going to prosecute him? The judge himself is a bigamist. The policeman that will arrest the man is also a bigamist. The prison warden that will keep the man is a bigamist. And that is why, even though we have a bigamy law, you cannot point to one person that has been successfully prosecuted in a country of 200 million people. And every day bigamy is committed. So there are some of these laws that when the laws are being done, what happens is that you go to the foreign countries, you just bring the law and you change the streets and the names. That is what we do. And package it and put it there. But they have a lot of implications. So when somebody says that if you bypass Twitter, you can't be punished. Indeed, the provisions, there is a way you interpret the provisions there as to ground punishment for you. So what we ought to be doing is checking the excesses of the president, of the House, and of the judiciary. Because the whole concept of having these three arms of government is one to check on the other.
Okay, I'll need to come in here with, there's this question, although you mentioned something like that, you've touched a lot of aspects, but I still want us to go back to that freedom of speech issue. You know, there's this, I think, the body in charge of TVs and newspaper and televisions and radios. NBC asked the radio and the TV stations not to use Twitter, you know, for news gathering and other, and that's on one side. And of course, we know about the banning of Twitter, and we have heard something else. We don't know if it's true because it's not confirmed officially that federal government is in talks with China, you know, to have internet firewall, more or less. That's what it's all about. And if that happens, you know, I'm just wondering, with all this that's happening, banning of Twitter and the rest of the federal government saying, no, it stands indefinitely and all that, what do you think? Would this not totally gag freedom of expression?
Well, you see, freedom of expression is not absolute.
Okay.
There is no freedom that is absolute. Every right that you have has a point of derogation. And the other law which I mentioned, which is the Anti-Terrorism Act, you know, government can come up one day and say that because your action portends danger to the security of lives and property, under that canopy of security of lives and property, a lot of decisions can be made. For instance, you have the freedom of movement, but government can say that from the way we see Delta State today, that there is a need for us to come and intervene. Therefore, between 4 o'clock and 12 o'clock, you stay at home. You will stay at home. Okay? And that is government's own decision. The people who should watch the government are those who ought to check on them. Because power corrupts. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. The president has done a thing, and nobody, no arm of government that ought to speak is speaking. So the point I'm trying to make is that in every law that you see, you just have to be very, no law is perfect. It can be, law is a double-edged sword. You have the freedom of movement, yes. It can be restricted under certain circumstances. You understand? For example, we say that a person is presumed innocent until he's proven guilty. But if you are accused of a crime, you can be kept for 48 hours, even though you have not been proven guilty. Isn't it? Because investigations are ongoing. And under the present dispensation, the law allows the police to go to court and ask for an extension of that period. You have not yet been proven guilty. You are still innocent by the law. So the point I'm trying to make is that freedom is a very dubious thing. Rights are very dubious things that a creative legal team can turn around. Okay? When you say a terrorist act, what do you mean? You mean an act that has the capacity to unjustifiably destroy huge lives and property.
Yes.
If the government now says that because you belong to IPOB, that IPOB, government interprets IPOB to be an organization that has the capacity to destroy huge lives and property, does that not fall in sync with the definition of terrorism?
Yeah.
It does. However, again, as a citizen of this country, you have a right to protest oppression and injustice. In law, there's what you call civil disobedience. When a government policy is not advancing your aim, is oppressive to your aim, you can halt the entire system with a view to getting the government to change the decision. Look at anti-SARS. What happened? People blocked the roads.
Yeah.
People crumbled the entire economy.
Exactly.
Okay? That is an example of civil disobedience. That's a right.
All right, sir. We can, for what all these explanations, sir, I'm thinking the law is contradictory.
Very,
Honestly.
very. It's dubious.
But let's go back to Mr. Alfred. Mr. Alfred, now, you've spoken about probably the craziness right now. Let me use that word, permit you to use the word of this Twitter ban on businesses. Now, with this invention of probably, we are hearing of the internet firewall being trying to build and this control system that the government is trying to get to us, like China, which is almost like a communist kind of a system of government that probably we hope it's not true anyways, but we know they are in talk. Now, what can you say concerning that, and then how will it really affect us, and then probably your final words in terms of with what is going on now, what should we do? What do you think the government should do? What would be your advice for the government currently in how to really tackle this issue so it doesn't go beyond this?
Are you sure it's there?
Okay.
Can you hear us? You can.
Okay.
It's just a bit of delay.
Can you hear us?
Oh.
Okay.
Okay.
I think that's until we're able to get signals.
Yes. Yes.
We're going to. I'm going to ask you this question. I think we're running out of time.
Yes, we are.
And I think you talked about what to do, because I remember Geoffrey Yama says they're currently in talks with Twitter to resolve this, and we've heard a lot of things, and I think I saw something on the news when federal government says Twitter is going to be paying tax and
CAC registration.
CAC registration. Okay,
so
yes,
they should
and
show
some other
remorse.
stuff. Until they show remorse, that's one of them. So, but how do you think? How do you see this playing out?
Well, I think
what resolution?
I think
do you
it's
see in sight?
oppressive. It's oppressive. If you go to the point at which this ban came, like I said, something necessitated it, and policies should be people propelled and people driven. One of the things that can happen is that a group of human rights activists can go to court and challenge the
and that's what's happening currently. I think a group of activists, human rights, and even young people are taking the government to court.
So
on
when
this.
it now gets, because the judiciary cannot on its own act unless a matter is brought before it, these laws can then be interpreted. The truth of the matter is, as strange as it may appear, it is the courts that actually make laws.
Yes.
What I mean by that is that if the executive, if the legislative arm makes a law, the court will interpret it. It's what the court has interpreted into the law that is now the law.
Yeah.
And that's why Owenda Holmes said, and I quote, that what I call the law is nothing more than the prophecies of what the courts will do and nothing more. Because you have this law, in order to give it life, it has to be tested in court and interpreted. For example, in this country, you need your card reader to go and cast your vote. That's the rule, that's the regulation. But the courts have said times to that number that the card reader is not yet known to our law.
Known to the law.
So that decision of the court becomes the law. You get the point? So the point I'm making is that the civil society can challenge this, and the reaction from the people, but even the legislative arm of government ought to be able to also do something.
Can the voice of several countries, we saw it on the news,
US, Canada,
UK, Canada, there's been a lot of pressure on the Nigerian government to rescind their decision. Would it make any difference?
Well,
do you think?
Those are persuasive. You see, Africans have a way of tricking the world. When it gets to this kind of point, they will say nobody should tamper with our sovereignty. That the foreigners are coming again. There were 3 books, I read in the university, which summarize this whole thing. You have The Wretched of the Earth by Francis Fanon. You have How Europe Underdeveloped Africa, which is one of the mentalities that we have, that these people underdeveloped us, that we should leave them out. You have A Man of the People by Chinua Achebe, that yes, they underdeveloped us, but when they left us, we have even further underdeveloped ourselves.
Yes.
Okay? So the point I'm making is that if you look back at Idi Amin, some of the things he was saying is that he was an African, he was a Pan-African. I didn't want the intervention that those people are trying to recolonize us. Those are debates that will be sold at the end of the day. That let America be America. That we want to be ourselves. You will now be seeing people who were never patriotic sounding patriotic. So we have excuses. Just as the law is dubious, our own reasoning and logic is also dubious. We can just come up and say, look, what these people are trying to do is to recolonize us. So all these diplomatic moves are what they are, diplomatic and persuasive. They cannot force us because we are a sovereign nation. And that is why we can opt out of OPEC today. We can opt out of all these arrangements are conventional loose arrangements. We have our sovereignty.
Okay.
We are a sovereign nation.
All right.
No, absolutely. Wow, that's
That's all we can take.
I
right
think
now,
I think
because
there's so much to talk about.
If we allow shit to continue, we'll just be here.
I mean, I was going to segment the questions, but it just touched everything.
Everything. It went round.
Everything
It
that
went
needed to
round.
be touched on the show
It
today.
went round.
And we want to thank
Alfred.
Mr. Alfred
Yes.
Akuki, business analyst, who joined us virtually on the show today. And
it's there right there.
yes, we want to say thank you for being with us today.
Thank you for having me, Shishi.
Awesome.
Yes, and to you also, really highly enlightening session talking
Very.
about the law. There's so much we've
Very.
learned about the law in just how many minutes of discussion. Well, Chief Barrister Robinson Ario is a legal practitioner based in Warri, Delta State, and he's also a chief in Warri Kingdom. I want to say thank you so much
You're always
for
welcome,
coming
Chichi,
on the show
anytime,
today.
anytime.
Yeah, great to have you here, sir.
It's a
Great to
pleasure,
have you.
it's a
Great
pleasure.
to have you. All right, guys. Anyways, that's all we can take for today. Chichi, it has been awesome. It has been awesome with you. And also, don't forget, if you're joining us, maybe you just joined us and then you love the program, you want it to continue, please ensure that you check out the numbers on the screen right there. We are open for sponsorship, advertisements on ABN channel. It is important that you do so. Okay, Chichi, any final words?
Hopefully we're going to be back, and I hope to hear good news. Well, it's affecting every single one of us. I use Twitter as a I used it before now. Okay,
are you afraid of prosecution?
Yes, I use it, and I love Twitter. I actually have quite a number of followers on Twitter, and so it's really affected me personally. I could say so many things, but like I can't be unpatriotic. I am a true Nigerian, and so for now I'm going to listen to my government, until otherwise. But that's how it's going to be. I hope to have good news for you next week on Twitter ban.
Hopefully. No, good news is good news. Whether but please, we will beg the government really to leave this to
reconsider.
I cannot say I've been handicapped over the week, but it has not been easy, especially gathering stuff.
But we're actually meant to be
program.
Not to take sides.
Obviously.
But when it affects you personally, why won't you? Why won't you take sides?
Obviously, I'm a young person.
I mean,
the 40 million people that are using it, I can tell you
I
that
am
a lot of them are.
I'm a media person. I'm meant to be an influencer. But when I lose my followers,
it's important.
It's something else. I can pass my message. I can.
Anyways, if we go on, we'll go on and go on and on and on and on.
All right. So join us next week.
Yeah. Join us. I'm Boye Makantoni.
I'm Chichi Mwabo.
Awesome time.
Bye for
See
now.
you next week.
We must go back to the fundamentals and the basics and start to teach people hard work.
You could prepare something like this for your family as
Yes,
well.
so now that I've learned the process, let me enjoy the process.
If you are not at the table taking decision, then you will be the menu on the table.
One of the ways you can actually see opportunities when you begin to see problems.
Arise Africa, showing live Fridays 10 a.m. with repeat broadcast on Saturdays 9 a.m. West African time on the African Broadcasting Network.